everyone, and I welcome you all on. This is another session on the MCQs which are related to orthopedic oncology. And as such, I was going through one of the books which is edited by Dr. Apur about MCQs, and I was going through the questions which have been presented in them. So I realized that many of the questions uh, are backed up by some proper logic, but there are a few questions where we have to just mug things up to answer those questions. So basically, in these MCQs, I have tried to cover the concepts which are there so that any questions which arises from that, we are able to cover it. And we'll go through them one by one. And I think we'll keep it interactive. If you want to ask anything, you can always interrupt and question, or later on also you can send your queries. So do we have volunteers today, Naufal?
So I think, Dr. Nagarjun wants to volunteer right now for this question.
Do we have volunteers?
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Nagaraj has raised his hand.
Nagarjun.
So the first question is, all are bone-forming tumors except. So we need to understand what are bone-forming tumors. So bone formation means osteoid production. So if we look at this, the examples which are there, normally the tumors can be divided into two types. The ones which are purely lytic, which do not have any matrix, and the others which have a matrix. And the matrix, like we had discussed in our last session, can be either a cartilaginous matrix, which is called chondroid matrix, or it may be a ossified matrix, which means there is bone deposition. So if we look at the examples one by one, we look at osteoma, which is a benign type of tumor. What you see commonly on the skull bone bulge, which is there. Then osteoblastoma, which is a benign type of bone forming tumor, and histologically, which is very much similar to the osteoid osteoma. The difference being osteoid osteoma is something where when it is less than 2 centimeter, a lesion, it is osteoid osteoma, and a lesion more than 2 centimeter classifies into an osteoblastoma. Osteosarcoma is one of the malignant variety of that sort. When we talk about this classification, so you can see that it is a benign and malignant. So the only picture which remains is multiple myeloma. If we do not know the answer, then it is by exclusion. But if we know that the reason, then we know that multiple myeloma produce purely lytic type of lesion in 95% of the cases. In one of the syndromes, it has sclerotic appearances, but that is something like an exception. This is not what we see routinely. So this is how we have to identify. But apart from this, sometimes you may have a question again asked in a different manner. So what are the differentials, or which of the lesions is not a lytic lesion? So I have made this chart here, and you can just see that we always, when we have to identify the diagnosis, it's better that we divide them into a benign variety and a malignant variety. That way it is much easier to sort it out. In the benign type, we know the cystic lesions of the bone, like simple bone cyst or aneurysmal bone cyst, they present with lytic appearances. The giant cell tumor, which is more aggressive, the Brown's tumor of hyperparathyroidism, fibrous dysplasia, and many a times infections. While the malignant tumors, Ewing sarcoma, Langerhansel's histiocytosis, multiple myeloma, and even metastasis. So I would like to ask some of the participants, so which lesions you see sometimes sclerotic type of metastasis? Anyone? So you can guess.
See a prostate, sir. And sometimes.
Right, Mukil. And anywhere else? Even in
sometimes carcinoma of breast also can.
Yes. So yes, mostly in CA prostate, it is a ossified type and sclerotic mets, and even in sometimes CA breast we see that. Where do you see pulsatile type of metastasis? Which pulsatile means it is a highly vascular type of metastasis. You can put up a guess.
CA kidney, sir.
Yeah. So
Sir,
see before.
from the renal cell carcinoma.
Okay. Very good. Very good. So see before we start to find out what is the answer, you can just think it a little bit in retrospect. So which are the tumors which metastasize to bone? Can you enumerate some of them?
Yes, sir. The
Yes.
carcinoma of thyroid, the
Thyroid.
carcinoma of the lungs, and the renal
Okay.
cell carcinoma,
Yes.
and the breast, the thyroid carcinoma. The breast and the prostate carcinoma are commonly metastasis to the bones, sir.
Yes. Among them, which is the most common tumor to metastasize in male and in females and in overall? Guess, you can guess.
Oh, yes, sir. Overall, renal cell carcinoma, sir.
No. So see, in males it is prostate,
Okay,
in
sir.
females it is breast, and
Okay, sir.
if we talk overall, then breast carcinoma is something which has a high propensity to metastasize. Coming to the
Yes.
pulsatile type, which means it is a highly vascular tumor, we commonly get pathological fractures or metastatic fractures, and we always tend to identify. We don't jump to the surgical fixation because we have to do all the preparation before we go in and go for fixation or excision, whatever. Because if it is a very vascular tumor, then we have to arrange adequate blood. So we know that renal cell carcinomas and thyroid carcinomas, they may be sometimes quite vascular, and they tend to bleed a lot intraoperatively. So especially if the metastasis is somewhere where you don't have tunicate control, especially in your axial skeleton, spine, or in pelvis. So we have to go with proper backup support, and sometimes we have to keep even do preoperative angioembolization to reduce the vascularity. So that's why sometimes the questions are asked, and we do not know what is the logic behind that, what is the reasoning behind that. But once we are into the clinical practice and we face the difficulties, then we realize why it is important to know which tumors are pulsatile, which are highly vascular, and so that we can, once we are doing some clinical work, we are well prepared for that. Great. So coming to the next question. So even if you don't know the answer, it's all right, because although onco is a relatively rare, but attempt something so that we can generate discussions. Don't think that you know or you don't know. Just attempt questions. So features of McCune-Albright syndrome are.
Yes,
So
sir. All of the above, sir. All of the features of McCune-Albright syndrome.
you are hitting the bullseye. So Mukil, what is McCune-Albright syndrome?
Sir, McCune Albright syndrome. Uh, so this all of them will be present in that. So that's all I am aware of. That I don't know exactly.
Right. So see, when we talk about fibrous dysplasia, it is associated with few syndromes.
So osteochondroma will be there, sir. Extra osteochondroma also will be there, I think.
Osteochondroma. No,
Sorry, sir. Sorry.
So see, McCune-Albright syndrome involves three systems. One is bone, then skin, and then your endocrine system. The bone, which there is presentation of polyostotic fibrous dysplasia. Do you know how the fibrous dysplasia can present? It can present in multiple ways. Anyone? Mukil, apart from you who all are there, what are the different presentations of fibrous dysplasia? So it can be monostotic, it can be polyostotic. It can be even a monomelic, which means it involves only one limb, or it can be even hemimelia, where it involves only one half of the body. So it can have varied presentation. And it commonly involves skull bones, especially the mandibles, then appendicular skeletons or axial skeletons. So in McCune-Albright syndrome, apart from polyostotic fibrous dysplasia, you have got these cafe au lait spots, which are brownish discolored spots you see on the body. And apart from that, there are endocrinal abnormalities, most likely which presents with increased gonadotropin hormones or hyperthyroidism and increased steroid hormones, which can lead to Cushing syndrome. So it is important to identify them. because sometimes as an orthopedic surgeon, when a patient presents with fibrous dysplasia to us, we just look at the bony features and we think of the treatment related to the bone. But actually, we have to look at the patient in all, and we have to evaluate in detail what is his endocrine status, what are the hormonal status. So we must be aware whenever next time you see a patient with a fibrous dysplasia, which is very common to see, evaluate other features also, and especially in those patients who are presenting at young, where they have got bony deformities, right? Any other syndrome which is, and all these questions are asked in the exam actually. So that's why I tried to incorporate these questions, especially which are asked. Any other syndrome which is present with fibrous dysplasia?
So Maza-Brown syndrome, Cherusism.
Yes, perfect. So Maza-Brown syndrome, and what is the feature there?
So intramuscular myxomas with fibrous dysplasia.
So you can see here, you can see that there is fibrous dysplasia which is involving the femur, and in the muscles in the medial compartment group, you can see that there are myxomas. So this is Maza-Brown syndrome. Good. So let's come to the next part. So this is a young male or female with non-metastatic osteosarcoma of the femur, and it may be presented to you in different ways. They can just give it in a verbal, in this written format, and I have added a picture also to make you understand what do we mean by and how do we evaluate it. So any idea what is the stage of this disease? Non-metastatic osteosarcoma of the femur. You can see the disease extent is also mentioned. Mukil or anybody else? Mukil silent ho gaya. Okay, so tell me what are the different classification systems in bone tumors?
So in generally the bone tumors are classified into benign, intermediate, and malignant tumors, sir.
Right. So this is the WHO classification, where traditionally we used to have just benign and malignant, but in 2013 the WHO guidelines have included an intermediate group also, because this group, these are of two types. These are locally aggressive and they can sometimes rarely metastasize also, like you have giant cell tumor or even chondroblastoma. Good. Next part. So what are the different staging classifications of bone tumors?
Staging classification, one is Hennecking classification, sir.
Right.
And one more classification name I forgot.
AJCC, the most common ones, American Joint.
Yes, sir.
So these are two classifications. The difference, okay, I'll go to the difference later on. Do you know what are the factors that we see in Hennecking? And is it same for all bone tumors or it is different for benign and malignant? Can you, any idea?
No, sir.
So see, Hennecking has, Dr. William Hennecking in 1980, I think, he classified this, he gave this Hennecking classification. And it is different for benign tumor and it is different for malignant tumor. Let us first talk about this case where the question is asked. So you see here, when you see a lesion, it is involving a part of the bone. Of course, you see the distance is approx 15 centimeter. I've just written it to stimulate your thinking. What is more important, whether it is intracompartmental or extracompartmental. So osteosarcoma means which arises in the bone. So now it has gone outside. So what it is? It is intracompartmental or extracompartmental?
It is extracompartmental.
Right. So if the tumor has gone outside the compartment, then it is extracompartmental. So how do we classify that? See, it is, if we start mugging up, it is difficult to learn these means to mug up these classifications, we get confused. So it's very simple. How Hennecking has classified is one, he has classified based on the grade. So tumors are either low grade or high grade. Second, he has made the classification into either intracompartmental or extracompartmental. And third, the stage 3, that is the metastatic scenario. So irrespective, low grade or high grade, it falls into metastatic. And if the lesion was, you can see the lesion here. Suppose if there was a skip lesion here in the distal femur, then will it be called a metastasis or will it be called the same? It is a localized type of disease.
No, metastasis only, sir. Metastasis
Yes.
with the same bone.
Yes. So even if it is a regional or if it is a skip lesion, it carries almost same prognosis, the poor prognosis as a metastasis. So skip lesions should not be taken lightly. They change the prognosis of these lesions. So if we classify this tumor now,
it should be then high grade extracompartmental.
Yes. So this is 2B. So the answer for this question will be, it is a high grade extracompartmental. So this is all is available if you just go through that. But remember the funda. It is very simple. Tumors are either low grade, high grade, and like 1, 2, 3. 1 is low grade, 2 is high grade, 3 is irrespective with metastasis. So 1A and B. A intracompartmental, B extracompartmental. So like you are going from lowest side to the highest side. Low grade, intra, extra, high grade, intra, extra, and then the metastatic. Great. So coming to the another part about the benign tumors. So this was a little different classification. Heineken gave this classification based on the radiological behavior of these tumors. So if we talk about, it is divided into 3 types: the latent, active, and aggressive. Latent means which have a well-defined boundaries. It is well sclerotic, marginated, and they are not growing actively. So the lesions and they can sometimes remain like that for years. So if we talk about the tumors, one is written there, osteoidostoma. Any other tumors you can think of?
Sir, non-ossifying fibroma, sir.
Very good, very nice. Yes, fibrous dysplasia. All these tumors can be latent and may remain like that for long. Coming to active tumors, where they show that they are growing, and that's why their borders are more merging with the normal bone. So what are the different types you can think of? Bone cyst, simple bone cyst, or aneurysmal bone cyst. Aggressive type of lesions where it is growing beyond the bone, and especially you have GCT, chondroblastoma, and even sometimes aneurysmal bone cyst, which can behave in a very aggressive manner in some of the cases. So this was the classification, which is very important because the classification not only helps to prognosticate, but also helps to decide the treatment planning and explain to the patient what the prognosis is going to be. The AJCC classification, it takes into account the tumor size, nodal spread, grade of the tumor, and the metastasis. So it is TNMG: size, tumor size, nodal involvement, grade of the tumor, and the metastasis. So I'm not going into the details of these classifications any further because this is what you need to know, and AJCC, you can just download it anywhere and you can go through it. So that sometimes if they ask the question about size and all, that you are able to identify and write in the exam.